Good evening, and welcome to Candidates Night, sponsored by us, Middleborough Gazette. I'm Jane Wolf, the editor, and the Council on Aging. And we thank the Council on Aging for once again providing the space for us tonight. What we do here is fairly straightforward and simple, except that we go in backwards order to the ballot, leaving the selectmen the premier race for last. Each candidate will have 3 minutes or so to talk about themselves, and then we'll open the floor to questions. Where there are contested races, we'll have the candidates, all the candidates speak, and then open up to questions. So that's about it. And the first contest on the ballot is for Housing Authority. And I don't believe Nancy Thomas is here, but I think Ed Gosson is here. And so have him introduce himself.
My name is Ed Gosson, and this is my first time ever running for any seat. The reason why I'm running is basically because one of the board members came up and approached me, and he said that Eddie McGearis was stepping down, and he had a background in construction, and he thought that it would work very well with the board with his background, and he was wondering if with my background of 25 years of experience in the construction field, if I would be interested in running. So I told him I'd think about it. I went to, I think I've spent like 3 meetings now. I've been to, and I'm very interested in hoping to help the elderly with the housing needs. And during the process, I found out the governor wants to eliminate the Middleborough Housing Authority as well as all the other housing authorities in the state of Massachusetts and combine them into 6 regions. His idea is to save $10 million. I don't see how he's going to be able to save $10 million with the way that he is his proposal. I've read most of it. I haven't read all of it, but it just doesn't seem that any way, shape, or form that he's going to save the state $10 million by eliminating the Middleborough Housing Authority. And that's basically about it.
Any questions?
Okay. All right, you got off easy. Okay, next on the ballot, Buddy Chilcott. Don't go anywhere.
I don't have anything to say.
Okay. Buddy is a candidate, well, wave at least or something. So Buddy is a candidate for re-election to the Housing Authority. You sure you don't want to say something?
Yeah, a little bit. And I think
Oh, you need to come up. You need to come up here, but.
I've been on the board probably too long, but the state is looking to centralize the housing and put it into districts, small districts, only 1,000 each, cutting your directors, local directors, your maintenance men, and everything else. I don't have email numbers, but if it comes up and you can say anything to your representatives, it's pretty poor. And I think to convert, the state would have to pay out something like $3 million, Joe, just to convert it over to the way they would like it to run. but yet they can't give us a couple $100 to fix the windows and stuff that were put in 1956. So be aware. That's it.
Question,
Okay, well, buddy, don't go anywhere.
simple question for clarification for some people. Why is there two housing authorities on the ballot?
One of them
Term, right?
retired,
Expired.
well, for medical reasons.
You know, but there's two on here, so is it because, I think it's because there's two, one's for 5-year term, the other one's for 2, is that what it is?
No,
No?
it's two of them are running for the one position.
There's, one of the terms is an unexpired term, someone resigned.
Right, okay. I just want, some people are confused, they ask me, I said, well, I'll ask the question for them.
Thank you, buddy. Okay, next, Judy Bigelow Costa is running for a seat on the Park Commission. Would you like to say something?
I'm running unopposed, and I'm only running for 1 year to take the place of Cheryl Leonard, who has moved out of town. There is a reason why I am trying to go on to the Park Department, and that is to try to get the Park Department to work towards trying to do more things for the town, that we can manage to bring in more revenue into the town by bringing in tourism for the town. And by doing this, by beginning with the Park Department, working with them, and then working with all the other departments and everything else, I think we can work towards making Middleborough a destination spot. We have beautiful open spaces, we have fantastic history, we have great businesses, we have a very unique downtown, we have a fabulous park department, we have all the makings that can make into tourism for this town. But we have to begin somewhere, so I'm trying this route now.
Can I ask just one question? Is there an area in Middleborough where
Judy,
you can have a summer concerts or something of that nature? Drinks and food,
You know, I'm trying to get him. I am sorry. I think I got your question. I think your question was about summer concerts for the Park Department. We have summer concerts. Middleborough Friends brings summer concerts on the town hall lawn all summer long, and they're wonderful, and it draws in a number of people. And they work with the town. And that's exactly what I'm trying to say, is that if we all work together, we can make Middleborough the area that people are going to want to stop. We have 495, we have 484, we have Cape Cod not far from us, we have everything, including history. We have everything right here that can make it a beautiful spot for us all to stop if they want to. So it's up to us to exploit it. Might be a bad word, but to exploit it and get the wording out there.
Thank you, Judy. You're welcome. For a separate term on the Park Commission, we have another person running unopposed, and that's William Ferdinand. Is he here tonight? I guess not. The planning board has, no one is officially running for the seat on the planning board, but there is a write-in candidate, and I don't know if he's here tonight. Adam? Great. Come up.
So, I actually found out about the opening on the board after the candidacy, all the paperwork to be filed. I was going to some of the planning board meetings to find out what was going on as far as development in town and different things like that. It's an interest that I have. I'm a longtime resident. I lived here. I grew up here. My parents have been here forever, so I'm very familiar with the town. I like to see the direction of where things are getting steered certain ways, development happening. It's inevitable. Some things are going to happen, but it would be great that it happened in a friendly manner. So I'm asking to write in Adam Carboni on the planning board so that we can fill in those seats and have an active board. I know there's several other seats that potentially may be opening up, so let's fill the ones that are available.
Can you spell your last name, please?
Carbone, and the address has to be included. It's 129 Marion Road.
Do you have any stickers on the
I don't. This literally happened. I started talking with Ruth the other few weeks, finding out what would be involved, and there just wasn't enough time to get it all worked together.
Jane, could you put this in the paper for him so that we?
That's it.
Okay.
It is. It went in today's
It
paper.
went in today?
Yep. Thank you, Adam, for stepping up and volunteering for that job. There are 2 candidates for 2 spots on the Finance Committee, so they are running unopposed. And I don't see Chris Belkin is one of the candidates. I don't see him. Is Glenn Cannon here? Guess not. Okay. All right. Sorry. Board of Assessors, again, there's 1 candidate, and it's Tony Freitas, and I don't believe he's here.
No.
For School Committee, there are 2 candidates for 2 seats, and 1 candidate is there tonight, and that's Sarah Cedamone.
School Committee. Thank you. I want to thank the Gazette and thank the COA for hosting this annual event. I also just want to take a quick second because there's been so much craziness going on in the last week in the world that I just think that it's really great that we can come in a local setting like this and exercise this type of right. And I just want to make sure that we all recognize that and how special it is. So moving on from there, my name is Sarah Cederholm. I am running for my 3rd term for School Committee, which is in and of itself hard for me to believe. I have been a registered nurse in my previous life, and I have currently returned as a full-time student to pursue a law degree. And I'll tell you that I have started that based on my experience on the school committee. Over the last 6 years, I have come to appreciate to an even greater degree the value of our public education system and how important it is for us to ensure that every single child in the Commonwealth and in the nation receives a high-quality education, receives easy access to that type of education. I think it's the cornerstone of our society, and I think when we start denying those rights, then we're heading down a really bad path. So I have taken the questions and concerns and frustrations and passion that I've developed on my time on the committee and have decided to focus it in a little bit greater way. Aside from that, I think that this is a really exciting time for the schools. If you had asked me a year ago whether I would be interested in continuing on the board, I would have thought twice about it, only because I was frustrated with our lack of progress. I had started to question whether, maybe what I had to offer wasn't what the board, the district needed. That was a year ago, and in the past year, I've seen the progress we've made as a result of several years of work on our behalf and on our part and on the part of our administration, our teachers, our students, our parents, and our community. We've been through a lot of change. Since in the last 3 years, we've had the interim superintendent, Mr. Mike Malone, and we have recently started with our newest superintendent, Dr. Rosalie Weiss. When Mike Malone came on, Mr. Thomas, another member, and myself, we were on that hiring committee, and we, as a board, recognized that we really needed to focus on getting our business in order first. We did not feel that we had the, not that we didn't have the backing of the town, but we felt that we had lost some credibility with the town, or that we certainly wanted to increase that credibility by getting our business in order, becoming making our budget process as transparent as possible, inviting people to come in and ask questions, and engaging with the town side of government in a much more beneficial way for both sides. And I think that Mr. Malone did a wonderful job doing that. I think the committee was extremely pleased with how we've come about in the last few years. I think that our budget process is incredibly accessible to people. We don't get a lot of people still at the hearings, but certainly those that do come seem to feel like the questions are answered. We try to provide all that information on our website. Our budget is a much clearer and concise process so that you can understand where we are, where we're trying to get to, and how we plan on getting there. Another thing that we have recently been a part of is a report from the Department of Education. They came down and interviewed us significantly last year as part of our lack of progress on our MCAS. And that report, the DESE report, which is available on our website, and I highly recommend anybody take a chance to read it. It's excessive, but it points out a lot of our areas where we are in need of a lot of work. And the committee right now welcomes that as an opportunity to direct our focus, to keep us grounded, and to keep our eye on the ball as far as moving our students forward. We're also undergoing a NEASC accreditation up at the high school, which we're also eagerly awaiting those results, because that will let us know also up at that level. We have a new principal there. We have a new principal at the middle school. We have a new principal at both of the elementary schools. We do not have a new principal at the MECC. So that will tell you just how much turnover we've gone through. But I think, all right, I'm sorry. So real quick, so because I'm not uncontested, I thought, well, this would be a really great chance to tell everybody about the wonderful things that the school is doing and the wonderful progress we're making, rather than just sitting there and telling you all about me. But I hope that you can kind of see that they go together, because this has really become a passion to me to really commit myself to the students here in Middleborough. And I really appreciate your vote. I appreciate your support. I look forward to working with Maureen Franco, who is the other candidate running. We have a wonderful board with a lot of diversity, and I appreciate your support. Thank you.
What's the average cost of a student in Middleborough?
We spend about $9,800 per student in Middleborough. It's below the state average. It has been for a while, for as long as I've been.
Thank you. That's really good.
Do you have children?
I do.
Are they in the school system?
I have one who's in the school system, and I have one who's not in the school system.
Okay.
The 9,800 is substantially below, isn't it? That's really good.
It's really good that it's substantially below?
Well, I mean,
I guess it depends on how you look at it.
I'll give you Chelsea. Chelsea spends $25,000 a student, and they lose their accreditation. So if you can do it to 10, my daughter's going to graduate this year, and I see firsthand I think you're doing a good job.
Well, thank you.
I just want to say thank you for all the hard work you've done over the past couple of years. I know that my kid's going to have a direct benefit because of the things that you're instituting these days. So I appreciate it, and please keep up the good work.
Thank you. Did you have another question?
Do you remember the grant that was going to be going for trying to put a position, a maintenance position together?
Yes.
Was the grant won?
We did not get the grant, but the school department is moving forward with that position. That's one thing that, I'm glad that you brought that up. So we have this facilities maintenance position, or facilities director position, which the school had tried to get a grant to fund. What our plan is to join forces with the town. The facilities manager will be technically a school employee, but will also oversee facilities on the town side as well. We've had a successful partnership like that in our technology department, where we recently hired our director of technology, Ellen Driscoll, and same idea. She primarily is a school employee because we have a larger proportion of the needs, but she then also has a technician who works on the town side, and so that allows us to collaborate and to consolidate. And I actually had the opportunity to share that experience at the Mass Association School Committee conference last November. Dr. Weiss and I went and sat on a panel, and it was only us in the Andover School District who had engaged in this type of practice. That was their presenting. There may be other towns, but it's relatively novel, and yet it's really an excellent way to pool the resources in towns that are always looking for ways to be more efficient. Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sarah. And as you said, the other candidate for school committee this year is Maureen Franco.
And I know she was on vacation, she had hoped to be here, but the date got changed and it had coincided with a previously vacation. There was,
Okay.
that was.
Well, I want to thank all of you running uncontested who came tonight. Obviously, you didn't have to come. You're going to win your election. And it was great that you came out and took the time to speak to the public. We have two contested races, and the first one is for 2 seats on the Gas and Electric Commission, and if the candidates would come up here. Thomas Murphy and Michael Solomini are the incumbents, and Daniel Farley is the challenger and a former commissioner himself. So, I guess we'll start. Why don't we start with you, Dan? And gentlemen, you sit over here.
Oh, thank you, Jane, for inviting me, and thank you for the COA for hosting this candidates night. I'm running for a position of the Gas and Electric Board. As Jane said, I previously was a commissioner, and I previously did work for Middleborough Gas and Electric. I enjoyed both quite a bit. I enjoyed meeting, interacting and working with everybody at the Gas and Electric, and while I was on the board. I should have started out by, I apologize, I wrote this myself. And I was very involved with a lot of aspects of our utility here in Middleborough, and it also involved working with a lot of the other town departments in Middleborough, police, the fire, some school in both Middleborough and Lakeville. And I think Middleborough is very fortunate. They have an awful lot of very good people working for the town. And the only reason why I left the board, there was I had work obligations, and I couldn't get to the meetings on a regular basis. I think in 6+ years or more, I don't believe I missed a single meeting of the commission. And if there was a miss, it was only one. The reason I'm here and asking for your vote is if I'm elected, I intend to work with the other board members in maintaining our low rates for both business and residential customers, and also improving our already high standards of service to our ratepayers in both Middleborough and Lakeville. Thank you.
Michael, you like to go ahead?
How you doing? My name is Mike Solomini. I'm seeking re-election for the Middleborough Gas and Electric Commission. I've lived in Middleborough for 21 years, and I've served on the Middleborough's Conservation Committee, Charter Study Committee, and recently the Middleborough Gas and Electric Commission. I have an engineering degree from Wentworth Institute of Technology and an advanced degree in business from Suffolk University. In addition to serving on various town committees, I often attend many other state and town meetings to help move our town forward. Before voting on 30th, I ask you to look at your Middleborough Gas and Electric Department bill. While I've been serving on this commission, the electric utility rate has decreased approximately 26%, or $362 per the average household. Middleborough Gas and Electric Department budget is no longer kept a secret. Open meeting laws and practice are now followed. In addition to help lower your utility bill, I help push for a successful appliance rebate program. In sum, Middleborough Gas and Electric Department has one of the best utility rates in the area. And I would like to continue working for the ratepayer, as I have done for the past 3 years. Please vote for Michael Solomini on April 30th. Thank you.
Michael, and Tyler, Tom.
Thank you, Jane. Thank you for inviting me. My fellow ratepayers and voters of Middleborough. I've been a gas and electric commissioner here in Middleborough for the last 6 years. This is the second of 2 3-year terms, and I'm running for re-election as the Middleborough Gas and Electric Commissioner. I'm retired, and I'm ready, willing, and able to continue to serve. It's been a deep honor to serve the ratepayers of Middleborough Gas and Electric, as I have for the past 6 years, and I look forward to serving for the next 3 years. During these past 6 years, I have encouraged and improved 12 rate reductions since 2009, both on the gas and electric side, as Mr. Solomon has alluded to, providing the lowest rates in the area here. I've constantly and consistently notified the G&E about the federal street lights in the community and had them upgraded and repaired, both in public areas as well as out on the streets themselves. And I've tried to put in motion a mechanism to get that repaired throughout the community with the help of the ratepayers. I have lived in downtown Middleborough since 1999. As I said, I'm retired now. I work as a business financial consultant. I work for the government on advising them on computer security matters. Since I moved to Middleborough here, I've worked with a number of the local television stations in terms of producing coverage for Middleborough youth sports, the Cobras, the Mitchell Memorial Club, any of the youth sports, the town selectmen and G&E television programs that they have, like this one here, the parades, a number of those things. I'm a 1975 graduate of Boston College School of Business Management, a BS in computer science and accounting. I tended to concentrate on the financial securities area. I've worked with the city of Boston on the Boston Public Schools previously. For about 6 years, I also worked as a defense contractor for the Department of Defense at Raytheon, working on developing missile systems, including Patriot, back in its heyday. I seek re-election to the office because I know I've done a good job. I feel the voters and the ratepayers may feel the same way. I've attended and televised, as I said, for 7 years, many of the meetings that they had there, and for 6 years I served as a G&E commissioner. So I respectfully request that you vote to re-elect Commissioner Thomas Murphy in the Middleborough town election on April 30th, 2013. Thank you very much. Any questions? Well,
Yes, I noticed going into work that the G&E's been replacing the electrical lines with the code lines, particularly down Lamb Street, Route 28. What is the reasoning for that? I think it's because of the incident that you had up in North Middleborough where the high tension lines fell and...
it may be that. I'm not really aware what the underlying reason is for that, sir. I think if you spoke to the electrical office or to the general manager, they could probably give you a more definitive answer on that.
So you don't know if the whole town is going to be done that way?
No.
Does Mike know?
I know they've been doing a lot of Hendrix system upgrades, and
Mike,
But, you done with me?
Yes. I don't think anybody else has a question.
in the past, I've observed similar activity in the area where they do like a Hendrix system upgrade. When the lines get fatigued, the electrical division manager, has projects for the year, and that might be one of his projects. I'm not sure as well as Commissioner Murphy had said, but if it's guys like those stars and the carrier wire going over the top, it might be one of their Hendrix projects. But that would be a question for the general manager or the electric department manager.
anyone else have a question for the candidate?
I guess this would kind of be a general question. I'm not sure who. I know one of the Middleborough has unbelievable rates compared to a lot of the private companies in the area and things like that. I know one of the things that has kept Taunton has lower rates than we do to some extent, and part of that is because of generation capabilities. Has the G&E explored any options as to integrating generation capabilities into the system? Is that a project that we're looking forward as far as planning, or are those things somewhat off the table? Like, I know I saw a project out off of 44, a solar project, things like that. Are those things that the G&E is looking at tackling?
You want to tackle that? Because that was back in '99. You might want to answer that.
Well, kind of going forward.
I think that's almost ongoing. They've looked, even when I was on the board, several different options as far as generation. In fact, once they diversified or changed the rates, you had to have some sort of generation, and it comes down to money, I believe. I'm sure it's probably the same now. They've looked at, I know they've looked at a couple of times, using the Nemasket River for water power, and they've looked at methane gas recovery from the dump when I was on the board. They looked at least twice, I believe, for peaking power generation, but it all comes down to the cost and the feasibility. And I think right at the moment, doesn't the board have, they cover their generation costs with a separate contract for you're buying electricity or gas? Yeah. Isn't that how they cover it? And I think that anything that comes up technology-wise, I'm sure it'd be looked at, and if it's feasible, they would definitely be interested in doing with it if I was on the board.
You don't mind? One more comment. Not 100% certain, but back when Mr. Farley was on the commission, I read some minutes where Calpine was looking at a peaking plant as he described. I think the requirements now, though, that the power generation would get gas last. So a peaking plant would only work when the demand is available and the gas is available for a plant to operate. And residents or the ratepayers for that gas would have to come first. That would mean a plant would have to probably be near the source of the gas, and that would be in South Middleborough. And that was the plan that was discussed back in 1999 to about 2000, which eventually fell through. And that was a peaking plant. I wasn't on the commission at that time, though, so details of it you can ask Mr. Farley.
But, Michael, I think Adam's question was also going forward, how you feel about various types of alternate energy.
That's where I was leading to, is I think the volume might make that a problem. It would, our current gas customers, we'd have to be careful of that. Are you asking if I'd be in favor of it?
Well, like for example, there's a lot of towns in the neighboring area that have used, and I know this is a controversial topic especially, but things like wind power, windmills, different things like that to augment and offset their municipal power costs and things like that. And I wasn't sure if things such as that were being brought before the board, or ideas for like future planning and different things to try to incorporate stuff like that into our municipal powers.
We have looked at a lot of solar projects lately. In general, I think we would consider visiting any additional alternative green or any type of source. Me personally, I don't oppose a gas generating plant. I think they create good jobs. It's a cleaner fuel than coal. I think we need energy. I think we need to produce it. Braintree has a peaking power plant. I think we would have to evaluate where it is, the impact. I am less a fan of some of these solar and wind projects only because the cost of energy would be passed on to the ratepayer. These other fuels like gas and even coal, you can generate power at like 4 cents per kilowatt. Solar and wind are much more costly, and I would hesitate on passing that cost on to the ratepayer. I don't think they're bad technologies, but I don't want to have to pass that cost on to our ratepayers. That's just my view on these alternative energies. I want to keep our rates low.
Ron, would you like to comment on that?
Yeah, sure. If I may, Adam, I'd like to comment too. I think as Michael had said, the passing the cost along to the ratepayers, I agree with him in that sense. It would make it more pricey. We have tried to encourage and work with some of the ratepayers out there who are trying to install solar applications and help them with their net metering so that they're able to get that done and make it very worthwhile for them. Let's see, I did have something here that I didn't want to mention to you. No, I guess that'll do it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you.
To some extent.
Rob? So, a question in general, instead of generation on the conservation side, I was reading an article recently that the town of Easton, amongst other local towns, are engaged in a project of replacing all their metal halide and halogen street lamps with LEDs at a cost saving projected to be somewhere like $10,000 over the next couple of years.
Do you want to know that? I can say the same thing.
Yeah. I would imagine it would be something we would have to sit down and take a look at, because it would be very pricey to do that at this point, at what the cost is currently for the LEDs. They'd have to go through some form of a cost-benefit analysis to come up with, but we could...
Hasn't addressed that at all?
No, we haven't really looked into it, but I'm glad you brought it up. We certainly will sit down and discuss this and see if Bill has something in mind in terms of that. But right now, I would think the cost would be very prohibitive. Okay, that's a good idea. Easton, is it E-A-S-T-O-N?
Yeah, the town of Easton.
Okay, great, thank you.
Either of you want to comment on that? Yeah.
Same way we just did the clock. At one meeting, I think one of the selectmen did show up and asked about lighting. It might have been LED lighting. We did have a brief discussion about LED lights, and they are quite expensive. Somewhere along the line, that cost would have to be passed on to the ratepayers. So it was a short discussion. We have looked at it. They do. I believe they last longer. They're good technology. But I think at this point in time, the area that we have, the cost, we would have to find an area where they'd be installed. It was a very brief discussion. It was, I think, brought forward by a selectman. It's a good idea. We're being a little frugal right now. You know, the economy isn't where we want it to be, and we're not wanting to spend ratepayers' money. So we're holding them back on it. If there's an outcry for installing lights, generators, and everything, and people are willing to pay for that, I'm sure we'll consider it. But right now, we're trying to keep our rates as competitive as possible, and that's what we've successfully done. More questions?
Neil?
As far as towns that generate their own electricity, hasn't some of the advantage of that self-generation actually gone away? And isn't the town of Middleborough's rates comparable even to places like the city of Taunton, who is a self-generator at this point?
At this point, Middleborough has the best rates at 11.7 cents per kilowatt. We have the best rate we have for at least the past year now. So that I would agree with you on that.
I think you give most of that credit to Jackie for that.
Yeah.
Tom, do you want to come up to the podium?
We have another question over there.
Oh, wait a minute. Let everybody else answer their question first.
All right. Okay, Neil, I agree with Michael in terms of the rate and everything, and I think a lot of the credit has to go to Jackie and her handling of the purchasing and the contracts that we have with the different utility companies that we get our services from, if that helps.
I can add to that a little bit. Actually, there's more to it than Jackie definitely contributed to reducing energy costs through the low cost of gas. I think in the lines of like $2.5 million worth of savings approximately in 2010 when I first joined the board. Unfortunately, at that time, the general manager chose not to pass the savings on to the ratepayers, which upset me very, very much so. Concurrently, the past general manager did not want the town to see the budget, and I fought hard to make sure the town could see the budget. Within that budget, the rate stabilization account had grown from $8 million to $10 million. Rate stabilization account is there as a buffer to keep your rates stable and constant, so you don't see fluctuations in your electric bill and any gas bill. In addition to Jackie's good work, I fought to have that rate stabilization brought back to the policy 3A that was to be capped at $5 million. So part of the savings you're seeing now is a drawdown of that rate stabilization account, which policy was set in June 2005 to cap at $5 million. When I got on the board, it was over $8 million. I saw that, I ran for this seat, and that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to get our rates low, and part of that is because of my efforts to reduce that account to what policy was set in 2005, in addition to what other people were doing with the gas and electric. But that was your money, and I wanted to make sure the rates went down because of that. So there's more to it than that.
Dan, did you want to say anything to the original question or comment on?
Just a parrot of what the
Okay.
says.
All right, Alan?
Along these lines, obviously there was a fair amount of controversy around this time last year with the G&E. Why was the rate stabilization account so high? Who allowed that to happen? How come the general manager's contract wasn't public? Why was the general manager giving raise after raise after raise in executive session when the board had signed open meeting law disclaimer saying that they read and understood open meeting law, and it's clearly spelled out that that is an illegal process? Why were these things going on for years before everything came to a head last year? Why did the general manager's contract have to be made public only after you, Mr. Solomini, filed an open meeting law complaint? How many open meeting law complaints were filed last year as a direct result of the past policies that former and current G&E commissioners were a part of?
All I can say, Mr. Frawley, is when I joined the commission, I fought for open meeting law. I read open meeting law. I attended Attorney General meeting law sessions. I often spoke to other commissioners that things were being done incorrectly. I even filed an open meeting law complaint myself on from 9/13 meeting that went into executive session. I understand what you're saying, and people came to me and told me, if you know this is happening, you cannot allow it. And I did continue to push for the budget to be made public, to be specific on executive session for the 10 reasons. I handed out materials, I attended seminars. Often, the ears of the commissioners were deaf. The commission failed in some respects. I pushed hard for 3 years, and sometimes felt very alone, and sometimes, in one case, when I asked not to send a letter to the Attorney General arguing my position, I got support from only one commissioner. Joe Renahan supported me in not sending a letter to the Attorney General saying I was wrong about the open meeting law case, which the Attorney General ruled I was correct. They should not have gone into executive session on that one instance and many others. But that is water under the bridge. We have moved forward, and things are going in the right direction. But I understand your argument, and I fought for that, and I think you know that.
Would either of you like to comment?
I agree with any of the comments that Michael Solomini has said, and as he has said, we have since moved on. Then there were many things that we had to have resolved in the past, probably since last March. We have moved on since then. So.
When I was on the board, that was the start of the issue. I don't remember the rate stabilization fund being that much of an issue. And as far as last year, I wasn't on the board when there were some issues with vote of the open meeting laws.
Didn't some of this go back when you were on the board, though?
Partially, it might very well have. I mean,
And why didn't you bring some of this up? Did you read it?
I wasn't at the meetings. You know, I was, last year I was working up until March.
I'd have the same question for Mr. Murphy.
What question is that?
The question is, you were on the board when some of these things weren't being brought to the public.
Right.
And were kept secret, in effect. Secret is the wrong word. But they weren't open. Why was that?
I would say they weren't secret, but many of them were not really brought to our attention originally when I first started going back 6 years ago. I wasn't aware of some of the requirements, the reporting requirements. I have since improved, as has anybody else that has since been on the board. So that's all I could really say about it. Many of them I was...
You really weren't aware of anything?
No, I wasn't aware of some of them. I don't think there was a concerted effort to make things secret.
Well,
I really don't believe there was.
But the end result was,
Yes.
that's what happened.
Sure, there was.
Whether that was the intent or not.
There was some difficulty.
Result was
We did admit there were certain things that were wrong. We had to rectify those situations, and we did move on.
Shame on the board.
Yeah, sure.
No?
Go
I would
ahead.
say that there was a definite movement to keep things secret.
Not on my
open meeting
part.
requests were denied.
None of my...
My public records requests to the G&E were denied. You signed a paper that said you read and understood open meeting law, and then you went ahead into executive session and made our general manager the highest paid general manager of a municipal electric plant on the eastern seaboard. He made more than the guy in Boston. And you agreed to each and every one of his raises. Don't say you weren't part of this and you didn't know about it. You were an active member of that board, and you need to take responsibility for your actions.
I do take...
You cost every person in this room money.
No, I did not. In fact, a lot of those open meeting law requests, open meeting law complaints were actually had never gone through processing to the Attorney General and completed. So you really don't have any determination as to whether they were correct and incorrect from the Attorney General. The board did admit that they made mistakes. There was an awful lot of legal fees that were paid that shouldn't have been paid, but they were paid, probably over $100,000 or more, in terms of all those open meeting law complaints and going through the whole labor process with John Granahan when he decided to leave. But I do admit that, and we have moved on.
Can I ask you what's the justification, or how could anyone possibly consider the evergreen self-renewing contracts? You know,
That was something they had done way before I had ever been there. It started long ago, okay? I agree they should have had a pro forma contract as a voice of 105. I agree with you, but that's just the way it had always been done. Go ahead, Elman.
You've been on the board for 6 years?
Yes, 6 years.
How many years of executive session minutes were released last year?
Probably a lot more than that, like 10 years actually.
In 6 years, you never thought to make an executive session minute open part of public record? You
Did
never
it?
thought of making the general manager's contract
No,
public
not me
record?
individually,
You never
because
thought of making
it
the
had never
raises public
been,
record?
to the best of my knowledge, it had never been done by any of the boards.
Did you vote against a motion to make those records public?
No,
You didn't?
no,
I'm pretty sure you did.
no, I'm pretty sure I did not. Go ahead.
Is Mr. Solomini the only one who filed the open meeting law?
Against the board itself, and I think,
My direct question to you is, did you agree with him, and did you file one on your own?
I didn't file an open meeting law complaint against anybody. He did, he filed one against the other members of the board. He was the only one that did that. I think it's questionable in terms of the state ethics laws, the conflict of interest laws, that you also have to, since he filed it against the board members themselves, he's in a position where he has to recuse himself in the discussion of that very open meeting law complaint. I'm not certain about that. I am not an attorney, but I think he is also required to go to the town clerk and indicate to her that he has a possible conflict of interest and that he has to recuse himself in certain deliberations and also in the selection of the MG&E Labor Council, since he is a complainant in doing that, and I don't believe he ever did that, so maybe he wants to address that as well.
As usual, I don't think you're correct.
Welcome,
I actually, that was 9:13. It was, I wasn't even at the meeting. I got the minutes afterwards and saw that the posting was different than what I received. So I had every right, and it's actually my responsibility.
I just want to stop you right there. I'd like to thank you for doing it, just, because if you hadn't done it, I don't think anything would have been done.
I had to do it. I was told I had to do it. If I knew something was wrong and ignored it, I'd be as guilty as everyone who let it happen. I pointed it out, and three out of four of the other members did not support me. They argued against me. I received letter after letter from Reuben and Rudman that I was wrong, we can do this. Oh, we had discussion in open session, we could go back in the discussion. No, you cannot. I seek advice from people I trust in this town. And I learned that I couldn't ignore it. I had to file a complaint. Otherwise, how would you know about the 10 years of executive session minutes that have never been published? How would you know about the general manager's contract that never really been signed or voted on, that nobody seemed to know anything about? It blew things up and said, hey, there's a lot of things that are unknown here, including things recently back to 1999. I went back through some of those executive session minutes and read them. And we've been doing the general manager's review in executive session since, like, you're supposed to do it in open session. I think in 2005 is when it changed. It was originally, when Mr. Farley was on the commission, it was first done in open session. And I think at some point it just immediately got buried in executive session, so you never knew what was being said. And I don't even know if they voted on some of the raises in open session. It just went under the radar. So that had to stop. The budget had to be made public, and we had to start adhering to public document requests. People needed to see these things, and I felt that that had to be done. On that date, I thought it was going to be a quiet message, so let's start doing things right. And what I was met with was a lot of resistance, and that's the way we've always done it. That's not acceptable to me. If it's against the law, it's against the law. You have to start following. One person from the department called me on the way home when I fought to have the budgets made public. What good is that going to do? How do you think that made? Do you think that made me feel good and was going to stop the town budgets? I attended the other events, a meme event that's coming up this month. I spoke with other general managers, and they said, what do you mean your budget's not public? So some of these events that we sometimes attend are valuable. I attended one in I'll just say other departments said, no, your budget is a public document. Why would the general manager not want to make it public?
Because he didn't want people to know he was getting paid.
The budget, that'd be a little different. The budget shows a lot of other things. And then he didn't want to disclose contracts and everything. So it was like, really? This is a department of the town. So, and my favorite one is our budget exempt because we have trade secrets. That was my all-time favorite. Please tell me the trade secrets.
Are there any other questions for the Gas and Electric Commission candidates? Mark?
A while back, one of you mentioned net metering. I could be wrong on this, but I believe the commercial utilities like NSTAR are required that if you're generating your own power and generate in excess of what you're using, it has to be bought back by the utility. I believe that the town utilities are free to only do net metering. In other words, they'll give you credit up until the point where your electricity is free, but they won't give you money in excess of what you generated, which I think kind of stinks. I'd like you guys to reconsider that policy. I think it would make it more worthwhile for people to do their own electric generation. And if the commercial utilities are doing it, I would like to see you guys doing it. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I agree with you 100%, and I'd like to sit together with the board members. We have a meeting next week. Hopefully we can put this on this small item on the agenda and ask them about it. Okay? How do you want to respond?
Actually, as far as these solar panels and projects, my view on it is I really believe that energy is generated by anyone should be used and not sent back. I think that's just my feeling on it all, overall, is use what you make, don't try to make money on it. We can get energy at very competitive prices, probably more competitive than someone who has a windmill or a solar panel. You make it, you use it. I think that's the best way for renewable solar wind projects. But that's just my view. As far as what we have for our residential customers, you put up a solar panel. We have to confirm this, but I think it's the price you pay on your bill is up to a certain size home is what you would get back. So the ratepayers of a home benefit more than a commercial customer. And I think that's great. So if you put up say our rate is 11 cents per kilowatt, and you cut off all the power. I think the policy says that you would get discounted on your rate that amount, but I would have to review the policy again to be sure on that.
Mike, you're right, and I'm not talking about commercial power generation at all. That's a whole other kettle of fish. I'm talking about private residents that generate their own power, put up a windmill, solar panels, whatever. You're right, that is the policy. I can get back as much as I can't get any more back than what I use. If I generate more than I use, you won't buy it back. The companies, the commercial utilities have to buy back excess generation. And I would like to see that policy changed. See, I can get free power, but if I'm generating more than what I'm using, I don't get any further benefit.
In other words, if you pulled the plug and just had the plug only going in one direction, you would feel you should get a check for that generation.
If I'm generating more than I use, it's feeding back into the grid, and you guys are reselling it to other customers. So you're working off of my investment.
But you're also getting full rate. You're getting both the transfer and the power rate, the two charges. As a residential customer, you're getting both rates. If we did revisit that, I think we would have to look at buying it back at a wholesale price, which is far less than the discount.
I totally agree. I mean, you have to make it reasonable so that we're not cutting our own legs off.
I think if we got more requests like that, we would definitely want to look at it. But my view on it is, if you're generating power, use it. It's the best bet. Then try to selling it back. Use it if you can. Don't use it or lose it. And but if more people wanted to try to sell it back and make money, we would have to look at that. I just don't think there's a lot of them out there that would do that. You're always going to use more than you can make with a solar panel or a wind generation. It just doesn't work out unless you get some new machine that we need to know about. I just don't think that it works like that.
I would think at least you'd want to buy it back at some rate, even if it's not the commercial rate like the 11 cents. I would think you'd want to encourage this type of thing.
I think we
even if you gave 5 cents back.
Right.
You don't want to give 11, you want to give the commercial rate, which is what, 9?
Right.
Why wouldn't you give 5 or something? I think you should. I think you're looking at this completely wrong. I would say you should look at this by encouraging people to go green. And not use it or lose it. I can't imagine throwing it away.
I've looked at it. I've looked at solar panels.
Oh, I'm sure you have.
I want to cut my electric bill. If I told you what it was, you'd be like, now you know why I'm on the commission. I know hair dryers and straighteners and all the stuff that goes on in my house. It's like my electric bill's pretty up there.
Maybe you should put a windmill in.
The other problem you have with wind generation is we don't have sustainable winds. I have looked at ways to cut my energy costs.
But I'm not kidding on solar panels, because I think that is attractive.
They're still very expensive, and the return is not there, or I would already have one.
I think the commission should look at those, and I think it's been ongoing. When I was working at Middleborough Gas and Electric, I believe we had one individual with a windmill, and it was metered specially for him. I don't believe he generated enough to come back into the system. But I definitely think that's something that, you know, we could definitely look at and reimburse if you are, in fact, if the customer is in fact putting energy back into the system.
Thank you.
Thank you.
To all the commissioners, I assume there's been studies that show that the homeowner cannot produce electricity cheaper than the Plymouth power plant, coal plants, or gas plants. Otherwise, everybody would have their own solar facility or windmill up because they would be able to make it cheaper, and businesses would too. So it comes down to the point that Mr. Solomini made earlier: is that does the Middleborough ratepayer and the Middleborough Board of Commissioners want to subsidize people for putting in their own panels? And for subsidization, correct me if I'm wrong, you'd have to put a tax or an increase in charge on everybody's bill in order to provide a subsidy for those people that want to put in a solar panel. That's why we see it in towns that are not municipalities, and you do see it in towns with national grid where it's required by law. Is that correct, or do you agree that we should have a subsidy for green power, or that we should not? No, because in my view, that's a regressive tax. People that can afford to go ahead and buy a solar panel, then could take advantage of the subsidy and the extra charges being put on an electric bill by the people that can't afford to build a solar panel.
Comment on that?
Good point, Lincoln. I do agree. I believe Michael agrees as well. Is that true?
I'll try to keep it simple.
All right.
I do agree, and what it comes down to is they're still using the wires. So there's still that cost, and that cost would be pushed on to other customers, as Mr. Lincoln had said. Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that there's been quite a bit of talk about what commercial companies are doing. Well, as far as I can see, the commercial companies are charging a heck of a lot more than the municipal companies are charging, and certainly a lot more than Middleborough Gas and Electric is charging. I like the way we're doing it. Let's stay with the municipal way, and let's keep those costs down. I just want to comment on that.
One of the other reasons why I felt it was important to run for this seat again and the first time is businesses were leaving Massachusetts. I have 25 years in manufacturing, and I watched companies go south where energy costs were far lower. We have to stay competitive in this area, and that's why I got on the Gas and Electric Commission, to see what we could do to keep companies like Breyers just left Framingham. Why they leave? Energy costs. I worked for a large company in North Attleboro. Texas Instruments left for labor costs and energy costs, went to Mexico. We can't afford to lose these jobs, these businesses. Accountants look at the energy costs, and they look at other areas further south and say, oh, we can save X number of dollars by just moving there. We lose all those jobs too. I've seen it for 25 years. We can't lose those jobs. And part of the reason is utility costs.
Okay, it's been a great discussion. We need to move on to the selectman candidates, so I will thank you. Thank you for participating. Okay, with the selectman candidates, come up. Okay, this year we have 4 non-incumbents running for 2 seats, and the both incumbents, Al Rulo, is here tonight, and Steve Pitaro are retiring from the board this year. So these ladies and gentlemen are signing up to serve you, and I guess we'll start with Leilani Delphi.
Hello,
My name is Leilani Dalpe. For those of you who don't know me, I'm running for the Board of Selectmen. First of all, I'd like to thank Jane, the COA, for hosting this, and I'd like to thank all of you for taking your time out to come here and find out about the candidates. It's very important for you when you vote. I appreciate that. I'm not originally from Middleborough. I'm from Cape Cod. My mother was a geriatric nurse and my father was a builder. My father had no sons, but that never fazed him. He drafted me at an early age to go into the family business. And when you worked with my father, you learned what you were doing. He not made me, but he insisted that I become a licensed builder, a licensed realtor, and a licensed appraiser. Little did I know, I'm not going to tell you how many years later, but a few years later, that's become very valuable to me. I've been serving on FinCom now for 3 years, and I have a really good understanding of what's going on in the building department, the zoning board, the planning department, the health department, the assessors department. I know how assessments are done, how taxes are doled up among all of the payers. So my father, maybe he had something in his vision and made me go and learn a lot that I'm using right now. I actually went to Boston Conservatory where I went for music. I was an opera major and piano accompaniment major, a double major. I was fortunate enough to win the New England division of the Metropolitan Opera auditions and was then sent down to New York City. I lived, or I say I did my time in New York City for a couple decades. I had a lot of opportunities to travel, to sing in Europe, in the United States, and in Canada. But more importantly, while I was in New York, I got a chance to manage some nonprofit performing organizations. I learned incredible information about dealing with government agencies, grant writing, all the red tape that it involves, the patience you need. That's also coming very handy with my work here in the town. Most importantly in New York, I met my husband of 17 years. Yeah, most important. I had to tell him I would say that was the most important thing this time because I put it at the very end last time, and he said, yeah, now I know where I stand. And being the fair-minded person that I am, after we'd done a couple decades of the fast-paced in New York, and I wanted to move closer to my family, which is on the Cape, we decided to move halfway in between, and so I told him, and which he still believes, and you all will believe tonight, Middleborough is halfway between New York City and Cape Cod. So, don't tell him any differently, okay? We liked Middleborough. We liked the rural part of it. We looked at 104 properties before we chose the Middleborough, and we kept coming back here, and we finally found the perfect one. We've been happy since we got here. That was about 6 years ago. Shortly after we moved here, a neighbor of mine who I got to know encouraged me to run for the finance committee. I did, and I was elected as a write-in candidate. That was an education. It has been an education. I've been on that committee for 3 years now, 2 years as the vice chair. And the saying, follow the money, it's very true in municipal government. There's nothing that happens that doesn't somehow lead back to a money trail somewhere. This has been great for me because I've had an opportunity to work with and observe virtually every department and committee in the town. It's been a tremendous learning experience. I feel I have a pretty good grip on how this town works, where the money comes from, how we can disperse it, and I've enjoyed it. Obviously, I've seen things that I want to do even more, and that's why I'm running for the Board of Selectmen. Which brings me to one of the reasons, besides coming up midway between New York and Cape Cod and closer to my family, that we moved out of New York is because we were paying $14,000 a year in property taxes. I'll say that again because it's staggering. We didn't live in the Taj Mahal. We had a little 3-bedroom, 2-bath, probably like most people have here. $14,000 a year, and it was growing and going up by $1,000 every year. Those people living in our house that we used to have are probably paying over $20,000 a year in property taxes. I have seen what happens. I have lived what happens when property taxes go astray. I don't want that to happen in Middleborough. I don't think anyone does. I know the town is on top of it. The town doesn't want it to happen. I have a really personal stake in it, having come from a bill that high. That's more than many people's mortgages.
And in conclusion?
And in conclusion, sorry, I talk a lot. People will tell you that. I'm going to talk real fast, 2 sentences, maybe 3. Okay, so I've seen the town, what we need to do, and we are moving towards, we are doing a couple things to control these taxes. Reining in spending, responsible spending. Not all spending is bad, but it needs, you need to get a bang for your buck, and you need it not to add too much to your budget. Collaboration. The school person that's gone now already touched on that. The IT, we are collaborating on that. The facility director catches any monies that we lose along the road. Big one I will say, and then I will close, I promise. We need to challenge the unfunded mandates that the state and the federal government put on municipalities. They will make laws and they will say, you have to do this, now go figure out how to pay for it. It's not right. We're very lucky here in Middleborough. We have 3 state representatives, 3 voices up in Boston. We need to lobby them. We need to talk to them. We need to get our word across. You say it may not work. It does work. We have one mandate in busing in the schools where we were having to pay 100%. We do not have to now. The state is going to be kicking in 50%. It works. I ask questions. This is the end. My most unfavorite saying, and this is always my close, so you know it's the close. That's how we've always done it. That's not an answer. That's not a reason. That may be a statement. It may not be right. Maybe we're doing it wrong for 50 years. Maybe things have changed and we need to relook at things. I am psyched to be your selectman. Thanks.
Sorry, I'm a little taller. My name is Don Jonah. Moved to Middleborough approximately 12 years ago. I grew up in Rockland about 22 years, so I got married to my wonderful wife, Susan. We initially rented when we moved to Middleborough. The only contact I have in Middleborough was when we played youth football. Usually beat us. But initially when I moved here, my wife, who grew up in East Bridgewater, was the reason we moved here. Seemed far away, work in Boston. And I'll be succinct, I wouldn't live anywhere else in the world. Middleborough's a wonderful community. My daughter's going to graduate from Middleborough High School this year. The school system is wonderful. She's had a great experience. It's a great place to live. The reason I'm running for selectman is last year, all the people who own property in Middleborough know, excuse me, your property values went down, but our taxes went up. And as Leilani said, you know, that's how we do business as usual. Well, unfortunately, business as usual will not fix the problem. Whether it's retirement reform of some sort. I mean, I don't want to attack anybody who works in the town, but if you work in the town for 20 years and you retire and you get a pension of say 50, I don't know any place else in the world you can go and do that. I worked for Brigham Women's Hospital on the nurse's aide. I worked there for 22 years. I can't retire after 22 years. I don't want to attack your pensions. If you work for the town for 20 years, you can have your pension, but you get it at 65 like everybody else. There needs to be some type of reform because you can't keep asking the taxpayers to pay more and more and spend it and spend it. Now we need a new police station. We need improvements to the high school. I don't know where the money's going to come from. I look forward to working with every citizen, every business in town, the selectmen who are already on the board. There will be 2 of us will be the selectmen. I'm listening to what they say because I have to vote for one of them as well. They say a selectman is a thankless job. Maybe it is. I look forward to finding out. I know we only have 3 minutes and I haven't spoke this long in front of an audience of this size since I was in high school, I guess. Again, my name is Don Jonah and I'm running for selectman and I can count you vote. Thank you.
John Nelson.
Good evening. I'd like to thank the Council on Aging for hosting this event tonight. I'd like to thank
Jay Lopes from the Gazette for moderating, and everyone in the audience for taking the time to come out and participate. I'd also like to thank Selectmen Steve Spataro and Al Rulo for their service to the town. My name's John Moulton, and I'm running for a seat on the Board of Selectmen. I'm a public school teacher. I teach first grade in Falmouth on Cape Cod, and this is my 25th year on the job. I also teach a summer enrichment program here in Middleborough for kindergarten through 5th grade, sponsored by the Middleborough Parent-Teacher Organization. My wife and I have lived here in Middleborough for nearly 20 years, and we have 2 children in the school systems here. My son Jack is at the Nichols Middle School, and my son Ben is at Bristol Plymouth. I'm no stranger to volunteering. I serve as a Middleborough Public Library trustee. I'm on the Emergency Medical Services Committee that oversees Middleborough's ambulance service. I'm an active member of the Middleborough Republican Town Committee, and I've been involved with their charity fundraising and scholarship efforts. I'm running to move Middleborough forward to face the challenges of the future in a positive way. I believe I have the skills and abilities that will help the board to make good choices for our town. I have 3 major areas that I would focus on. The first would be supporting our businesses. Increasing economic growth and development will increase our tax base and improve the funding for vital services. I will work to improve Middleborough's business-friendly atmosphere to encourage more businesses to locate here. Second, preserving educational opportunities for our children. I'll work with the town and the school departments to make sure our children have the choices for the best education we can provide, including options like the Middleborough High School, Bristol Plymouth, Massasoit College. Finally, I want to ensure that our town is being responsive to the taxpayers. I'll work with the board in a fiscally responsible manner to make sure our citizens are getting the services they need from the town, and that Middleborough is getting the personnel and the equipment required to provide for our citizens. Our community is facing challenges. We have a police station that needs to be enhanced. We have a wastewater treatment plant that needs a significant upgrade. These are challenging economic times for everyone, but working together we can provide for Middleborough's present and future needs. I believe that I can help Middleborough meet these challenges by finding the best solutions possible. My name is John Moulton, and I ask for your vote on April 30.
So Diane Stewart, I think that was you.
Jean was saving the best for last, obviously. Since my childhood, Middleborough has provided me with extraordinary opportunities over the years. I'm committed to the town because I want to pay it forward. I want to give others the same opportunities that I had. Everyone wants to leave something a little better than when they came upon it. My name is Diane Stewart, and I'm running for a spot on the Board of Selectmen. I'm here because I'm the beneficiary of past volunteerism in Middleborough. When I graduated from Middleborough High School over a decade ago, I received several grants and scholarships for college. One of these scholarships was actually from Oak Point. The generosity of those in the town and the commitment from teachers, town officials, and other town residents gave me my start to a successful career, and again, I want to pay it forward. I see Mr. Gillis in the audience out there. He was one of my teachers when I was at the high school, a math teacher. I'm a domestic relations attorney. I hope you won't hold that against me if you've had experiences with attorneys in the past. I deal with families and sensitive emotional issues. The individuals I interact with are generally good, rational people under ordinary circumstances. But under the stress of a divorce or a custody battle, they often become completely different people who are angry, hurt, and vengeful. My job is to balance being a zealous advocate for my client with making sure the client has realistic expectations of what he or she is legally entitled to. The majority of my cases also involve children, so there's that additional factor that the parents will have a continued relationship after the divorce is over. This has given me the ability to both advocate for and understand positions different from my own. Additionally, my experience as a mediator has allowed me to convey different positions in different ways to help parties come to an agreement. We have a saying in the divorce field that if both parties are unhappy with the agreement that they have signed, then you've got a great agreement. The truth, though, is that you need to get both sides to understand where the other is coming from. My skills can be applied to disagreements the town has with its residents, with businesses, and with our other entities. Aside from being an attorney, I'm also the coordinator for a pro bono program with the Bristol County Bar Association, where I oversee the volunteer efforts of 80 attorneys. Little background on me, like I said, I graduated from Middleborough High School. I went to Wheaton College, graduated with my Bachelor of Arts degree in Russian language and literature in 2006. I graduated with my law degree from Roger Williams University in Rhode Island in 2009. And I became a member of Massachusetts and Rhode Island bars in 2009. I believe that the residents here want somebody that will be reasonable, will listen, and will understand the values of the town. I think people often underestimate rural towns like Middleborough. We may not have a high median income, but we have a real sense of community here. The Middleborough Gazette is much more upbeat than papers with a wider distribution. I always find an article in there that highlights the goodness in the town. My experience of being on both the Finance Committee and the Capital Planning Committee has shown me the importance of bringing all required boards together for a consensus rather than unnecessary decisiveness. We need to be able to work problems, not work personalities. I have been on the Finance Committee since February of 2010, and I've been on the Capital Planning Committee since November of 2010. I believe that the Finance Committee, under the great leadership of Mr. Powdori, has worked hard to build strong relationships with all of the departments in town. We have invited departments in to consider additional requests that were not recommended by the Board of Selectmen. On the other hand, we have also asked difficult questions to find out what services the residents are really getting. An example of the Finance Committee working together with the rest of the town is the proposed police station. Originally, FinCom was not on board with this idea. However, after speaking with Chief Gates, with the Board of Selectmen, and most importantly, after meeting with the Police Station Building Committee, we feel we have asked the necessary questions to get on board with the approval of the proposal. I have a couple of quick points on sort of hot button issues with the town right now. Open space. One thing I love about Middleborough is its open space. We have several square miles of dedicated open space in the town. I do believe we need to balance that with development in the town, though. Businesses bring in revenue and they don't eat up town services. They plow their own parking lots, they pay for their own trash pickup, they don't have kids that they send to school. Middleborough is fortunate enough that we have enough land to be development friendly and also maintain our open space. Capital projects. We are fortunate enough to have a dedicated group of residents on the Capital Planning Committee. We have created a 5-year plan for capital expenses that the town departments anticipate in the near future. This means we can actually plan for things in the future instead of waiting until something breaks or something crumbles before we have to replace it. Some big projects on the horizon are a new police station, a wastewater treatment plant, and a new high school. Interdepartmental cooperation. I have seen employees and volunteers from different departments and committees really come together to try to give the residents the biggest bang for their buck. A great example of this, as Sarah Cedarholm and Leilani Delphi had brought up, was the facilities manager that the school board hired. I think that's going to be a great asset to the town. The Rotary is another issue. I think we need to be able to deal with that. We need to have the state's funding support on that. Capital planning has moved forward with security and technology in the schools. We need to keep our kids safe. We need to be able to have them progress and be competitive with other schools. I understand the time involved with being a selectman. It's not just on Monday nights. Monday nights is where everything comes together and is presented to the town, but there's a lot of hours behind that, and I understand that, and I'm willing to commit to that. There's a lot of talk about transparency. I think transparency is obviously a good thing, but I think it needs to go further and make sure that people are informed. And I will be committed to making sure our residents are informed of everything. And let me leave you with just 6 points. 1, I am committed to Middleborough. 2, I promise not to agree with residents all the time, but I do promise to listen carefully to their concerns and to make thoughtful decisions based on that. 3, I promise to keep discussions in understandable terms and not digress into legalese. 4, I promise to make grant writing a priority to help Middleborough get as much financial assistance as possible. 5, I don't pretend to know everything, but I promise that if there is something I don't know, I will do the research required and make an informed decision. Finally, 6, I promise to be there. Clear and simple. I have very few FinCom meetings, town meetings, capital planning meetings, and I promise to continue to be there in the future as your selectman. Please vote for Diane Stewart for one of the Board of Selectmen seats on April 30th. Thank you.
Question for the candidate. Jim Thomas.
Thank you, Jane. The residential tax rate in Middleborough is $14.89 per thousand evaluation. The commercial tax rate in Middleborough is $15.84 per $1,000 valuation. That's a mere 95-cent differential. In Fall River, Taunton, Quincy, and New Bedford, the commercial rate is more than twice the residential rate. And in Brockton, it's almost twice the residential rate. My question to all the candidates is, are you in favor of or opposed to widening the difference between the two rates so as to give the homeowner or residential property owner a much needed break?
I think probably they've left it low, first of all, the commercial to attract business. I'm not agreeing with that. I think any business that comes to town needs to be giving something to the town as well. And easing the tax burden is important on the residents, for the residential. Historically, I would have to see, but I would tend to say that the businesses need to pay more fair share.
Anybody else?
As I said earlier, that's part of the reason I'm running, is my tax rate seems to be too high. I would agree that the business community doesn't need to probably pay more. Unfortunately, when you raise it too high, you chase business away, and we don't need to do that. And with all due respect, sir, the communities, New Bedford, Quincy, Taunton, Middleborough's 25,000 residents. Taunton has about, what, a couple 100,000?
What's that got to do with anything?
You have more businesses. You have more opportunity. People are going to send businesses to New Bedford if you have a restaurant because there's more people there. I do agree with you that businesses need to pay more. I would like to pay a whole lot less. But I would like to see what, say, Raynham or Wareham or Carver, what do their businesses pay, because they're more comparable than, say, Taunton, Brockton, Bedford, or anybody who is so much of a bigger population than we do. Thank you.
I would agree in concept that businesses should pay more, but again, I would agree, compare us to comparable sized towns. And one of my main points would be, let's make Middleborough a place where businesses want to come. So we want to attract those businesses. That's going to support our tax base.
I echo my colleagues up here. I do think that businesses should pay more. I don't think that you want the split to be too big, though, because then you do come off as appearing anti-business. And the businesses aren't going anywhere really right now. So I don't think we necessarily need to lower it for the business rate, but I do believe that the business rate should be higher than the resident rate.
You got the question?
Yeah, my question is unfunded pensions. Quite a large amount, as I understand it, and I'd like to ask the candidates what they predict will happen there.
Speak up.
I touched on that briefly in my opening statement. That's a disaster area. I mean, if we have unfunded pensions, you could potentially go into to receivership. Lakeville a few years ago had the same problem and threatened to close the police station at 8 o'clock on Friday night and open Monday morning. Obviously, you can't do that, you lose your town charter. As I said, if you want to work 20 years and get a pension from the town of Middleborough, it's great. But again, you can have it at 65. That would save a lot. Perhaps we could roll the town employees, even the unionized employees, into the state health care plan. So we would get a lower rate for that. Any savings we got, we could roll into the pension fund, because I cannot think of any worse situation than being retired. The town made you a promise, and now the promise isn't there anymore. You don't have any more money. That would be a disaster. And a lot of elderly people, not just in Middleborough, but facing a situation. Stockton, California went bankrupt. It's a pretty big community. It's terrifying in Middleborough to go bankrupt. And again, we have to have some type of pension reform, so that the money is there when people do retire. You can't make a promise to someone and then pull the rug out. Right. So whether, like I said, whether it's just those couple things. One other thing on that, I don't know what the average person makes in Middleborough, the average family makes, but I would cap pensions at say $90,000. Does anybody who retires really? I mean, I don't think people in Middleborough make 90. I know I don't. And it doesn't affect that many. It's probably people who are executives, superintendents, what have you. But you could save $50,000 if there's 5 people who make over $90,000 right there, and put that right back into the pension fund. Because that's something that is, I'm only 50, and I'm retiring, well, not 65 for me anymore, because I was born at 62 to 67. But, it's frightening for me. I can't imagine being much older and depending on that and hoping it'll still be there. Thank you. Thank you.
I would see pension reform done under the same model that the state has been doing it, with a grandfathering of the people who've already gone through and they've put in their time and they've planned out their retirement. You can't not honor those agreements. For new hires, make it very clear right up front. Here's what it's going to be. Let's something that the town can afford and can be responsible for the individual.
Pension reform is on the horizon. It's in the state legislation. Much as we just went through the health care benefits on the state level, our town manager was ahead of the ball there and started negotiating those health benefits before it came into law, and we've been able to save significantly. The town, he also has his eye on putting away for pensions. We are filtering money into that pension fund. Are we where it should be if everybody decided to retire tomorrow? No. We're moving in the right direction. It's also a delicate balance. Don't forget, we don't have any specific law or reform right now on the state level. We are bound, again, by state laws. There's no reform in them yet. We have to negotiate things with the union. Most of the employees of the town are unions. You can't just say, okay, you're only going to get this much, we're not going to give you any more. It's a very delicate balance. This town manager is on top of it. This board of selectmen is on top of it. The finance committee has been on top of it. Like I said, it's not perfect. We have our eye on the ball. We're moving in the right direction.
Thank you.
I think pensions, people are very interested in those. That's a big draw to be a municipal employee. I think is the often lucrative pensions. That's all part of the bargaining that the selectmen do, and Mr. Costello does, whoever the town manager is at the time. I think we want to attract people who are going to work for the town, to be a town employee. We want to attract the best and the brightest, certainly at financial compensation levels that we can afford. I certainly would agree that people will be grandfathered in, because you should get what you sign up for, and people shouldn't change things after the fact. But we do have to look forward and make cuts where we can make cuts. So I agree with Lonnie that it is a delicate balance of negotiation between any employees or potential employees in the town.
Mike, you had a question?
Yeah, actually, we were talking about taxes and business, and maybe one of the questions, how do we attract businesses to Middleborough, and what type of businesses would you like to attract to Middleborough?
There are a lot of ways. First of all, and I have to emphasize this, when we attract businesses to Middleborough, it should not all be in favor of the business. Middleborough has to get something out of it, whether it's jobs for the people here, whether it's increased customers for the other businesses here. We have to get something out of it. We have TIF agreements going now. They're great. They don't always ease the tax burden so much on the residents. But we can work on TIF agreements that are beneficial to both businesses coming in and to the residents here. The town has also taken a step on the bio rating for the town. Now what that means is the state rates towns in bronze, silver, or gold as to how friendly they are to biotechnology businesses. And biotechnology is science, and it is the future. We are now at bronze level. We're looking to become a silver level. Now that's not going to cost the town anything. What it involves is some changing around of zoning, and maybe studying up on what the needs of these companies will be. If we are ready, it's like any opportunity. I learned this when I was in New York. I wouldn't have done any of the things that I did if I wasn't ready on a dime to take an opportunity when it came along. We have to be ready. We have to be doing the work now so that 6 months from now, a year from now, a company comes here and we're ready to say, okay, let's sign the papers tomorrow. So zoning has to do with it. The tax agreements, I mean, we can give some tax incentive as long as it doesn't outweigh the benefits that they give to the residents. So hopefully that answers your question. The town is looking at these things. They're working very hard, the town planner. The Rotary, that was addressed. That Rotary, it's going to have to come on a state level. And it's going to have to come through the surrounding towns. That Rotary is not just a Middleborough problem. That's hurting businesses on every town around here that has to go through that 44 Rotary. So again, I go. We have our 3 reps, use them. Go to them. If they don't get you there, go to the next level. We need to get on the state for that. And we need to get the help and the cooperation of the surrounding towns. That will help a lot with attracting business here.
We want to attract a variety of businesses, I think, to go to your point of the type of business that we want here. I think anything from nail salons, we have we have plenty of restaurants here, plenty of sort of non-chain restaurants that towns like Middleborough are famous for. I'd like to get more businesses that cater maybe to the younger population to draw. I don't think that Middleborough needs to be sort of a nightlife hotspot or anything, but it would be nice to be able to go out on a Friday night and have more options than like the Central or something to go to. And I think that would draw younger people into the town too. I think it's always good to have a mix of sort of younger people, middle-aged and older people in the town, because everyone there provides, everyone has a place. I think the Rotary is an issue for some businesses, especially if it was a big manufacturing business, something like that. When I was growing up, downtown was, there weren't a whole lot of businesses downtown. And as I understand it from, my mom grew up here and she said there were tons of businesses downtown. We have the unique town layout that we have a downtown, sort of a typical New England downtown. I'd like more of the smaller businesses to be able to go there. We certainly have some there now, but we do have a couple of empty storefronts. So I'd like to be able to attract businesses to those places as well.
I'd like to see everything from the very large businesses, Christmas tree shops, the headquarters, right down to the very small, an ice cream shop on Main Street. I think the way to do that is to work, the Board of Selectmen can work with the town manager. The town manager works with the department heads. We need to work with the tax assessors, the health inspector, the building inspector, making sure that we're all going in the same direction. Making sure that ultimate goal is to provide a way that businesses can come and set up here and not feel like they're going through an extra amount of red tape. We want to be a welcoming community to them so that we can enjoy not only the jobs that they bring, but the tax base they bring to us.
I agree with my colleague. The only thing I would say is sometimes to attract business, you have to kind of take the bitter pill in the beginning of giving them a tax break. But any tax break would have to be under the guise of a 10-year contract. I would be willing to give a tax break for the first few years, but they need to pay their fair share in the end. And I think if you can stay in the town for 10 years and it's successful, they will pay their fair share after that, and hopefully they would stay. Specifically, I would like to, if I was elected, I would reach out to DeMoule's Market Basket. 2 supermarkets in town are very nice, very clean, very new, but they're a little pricey. So I'd like to see maybe some competition. Market Basket has got quite cheaper. I actually ended up driving to Raynham. I do most of my business in Middleborough, but substantially more at the 2 supermarkets we have in town. It'd be nice. I mean, we have Sorelli's closed. That's a great place to put another supermarket. So it's near the Rotary, but it's right off of 495, and they go to West Bridgewater and down the Cape. So maybe they'd come here. Thank you.
Diane and John, you have kind of answered the question that I'm going to ask, but I'm going to say we all know that Middleborough is a community of people and commodities. Our downtown is the nucleus of the community. If you are elected as select person, what suggestion or suggestions can you give to help our downtown businesses to survive and bring in more revenue to our town?
In addition to what I'd said earlier about working with the different town departments, one of the things I can think of the top of my head is the signage, so that people know where parking is available downtown, so that, right now, very limited parking for a lot of the businesses. We've got these great parking lots, but choose the ones behind venues. I would definitely try and help out the businesses in that way.
I think that what's going to be the greatest shot in the arm is we have St. Luke's Hospital. High Point's facility is coming there. A lot of people have mixed feelings about it. I've looked into the company. It appears to be very reputable. What I'm looking at is they're going to be bringing 200 jobs to downtown. That's 200 more people having lunch, buying gas, picking up bread and milk on the way home. They have a big parking facility there as well. I think the town needs to stay ahead of this. We can't pretend, oh, we don't want it, or is it not going to happen. We need to stay ahead of it. We need to be talking to them. Is there a way we can share their parking facility? They also have a helipad for medical transports on that facility. We closed down roads, major roads near Route 44, South Middleborough. We closed them down to do emergency helicopter transports. We have a helipad sitting there. I've heard it's not quite up to what the new aircraft are. They're going to be redoing that building. We should be talking to them about having some collaboration between the town and making it so that that can be used for transport. I think that it's going to be a very positive downtown if we make it that way. It's like anything. We have to be proactive, stay ahead of it so that we can be in somewhat control of it.
I would really just repeat what John said. You know, I mean, maybe we just need to reach out to people who, to small businesses and put them in touch with the state small business loans, because obviously anything that goes down there is gonna be a small business. My wife and daughter shoot archery at Reedy's. That was a big deal when Chris left. You know, and that's a big building. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem to have a lot of insulation. It was always cold in the winter and hot in the summer. So, you know, short of that, it's a kind of a sign of the times. And thank you.
I think more businesses have been popping up in downtown. I think we do have a variety there now. We have a couple of coffee shops, pizza places, convenience store. I thought tanning salon there. Benny's is there. I think it's a big draw that the post office is there, because that gets people from both Middleborough and Lakeville downtown. And again, I'd like to try to find ways to fill up any of the vacant businesses that are there. You know, I think signage is a great idea, like John said. You know, I think the people that have been here a long time know that you know where any big parking lots are. But anybody that's new here, if all the streets are filled up and there's no parking signs, you know, they might just keep going. I think if we, as a town, decide to build a new police station down there, I think that might be a draw for businesses as well. We'll be able to continue to have a police presence downtown. They'll be coming and leaving from downtown. I think businesses will feel safer being there. And I guess that's it.
My question is for you, Mr. Jonah. The town of Middleborough, we're very fortunate in that we have four very people with very considered thought processes. And however, this is something that I ask every candidate tonight. The three people to your left have all been working and donating time to the town of Middleborough, and they've shown a commitment. And so my question is for you: have we just not seen you around? Have you been donating, involved, and why are you just, if not, then why are you all of a sudden just running for selection instead of learning the process and donating time to other boards in town?
That's a good question. I haven't been, but as I said, I'm a concerned resident, and prices just keep going up, and my taxes just keep going up, and I'm trying to make a change in that. I also work between 36 and 48 hours a week. It doesn't leave a lot of time. I would have to change my schedule if I was elected to the Board of Selectmen. I'm just trying to make a difference, and it doesn't seem that things have changed very much every year since I've lived here. It's more and more, and nothing's changing.
One simple follow-up. If in fact you are not elected, do you plan on becoming involved in other aspects of town government?
If I'm not like the selectman, maybe I'll reach a little lower next time. Thank you.
George, is there any question?
Oh, yes, I did. All the candidates mentioned how much they like Middleborough and they wanted to grow up here. Unfortunately, I didn't, but I did go from a small town. I'm concerned, other than the financial things which are all on all of our minds, about the quality of our life here and about what these candidates as selectmen would do to defend and increase the quality of our life, especially the rural character of our town. And hearing all of the wonderful responses, I'll also mention, I'm a businessman, so I'm not anti-business, but these people who get a tax break to move in, I've been in business for 37 years since I first got out of the Army. And I've watched these companies for 7 years here, 7 years there, 7 years there, because they get a deal. And the executives always live in Hingham, or Cohasset, or Duxbury, or Tony Town. I think our town is terrific, that's why I choose to live here. But I'm also concerned about overdevelopment of the town and the degradation of the town when the industrial parks move in. I'm over a mile from the park by the traffic circle. At 2 in the morning I can hear the air horns blow when they want the doors open. And some nights I can actually hear them slamming pallets down outside. So there's always a cost to pay when we have a big business come in. Those of us with small businesses usually have a business here, and we live here, so we have a deeper feeling for the town. So I have some cautions about attracting quote-unquote bigger business. But my major question is, what would you do to defend our rural character?
I think there is that trade-off between attracting businesses that can support the tax base and concerns about quality of life. Last year we passed at town meeting the Community Preservation Act, and we're able to take funds and use them for exactly that purpose. And that way we can try and preserve those aspects of the town, those almost intangibles that support the lifestyle that we're all accustomed to. Purchasing open space areas, helping out refurbishing certain buildings. I think that talks to what you were saying, the character.
Is that what you meant by character? Physical characteristics of the town, or sort of a more than that?
I really mean the rural aspect of the town. When you come here, there's farms, there's open space. There's a feeling that it's free of the rolling suburbia coming down from Boston down 24.
I think it's very important to maintain an open space that we have currently. As I said, we do have several square miles of protected open space already. Not that we don't need to have more, but I think Middleborough, being the second largest town land-wise, we have a unique town in that we have area to expand, but also enough area to keep open space. And I think we do need a balance of that because at some point everybody moved into town, and I don't think we want the reputation of a town that says, well, once I move in, then we have to close the doors and nobody else can come in and develop or create a business here or anything like that. And not that that's what you were saying, but I think sometimes you get that feeling in Middleborough that everybody wants to keep things exactly as they are, and nobody wants any change. As I said, part of the reason I like Middleborough is the open spaces and that small town feel. But I think we have room to grow in terms of business and development. In terms of tax benefits for local business owners, I would be totally open to exploring that if we could. I don't know if it's legal or not to give preference to small business owners that live in town versus big businesses that the owners live out of town. But that's something I'd be open to exploring.
I agree with you. That's why we moved here. Like I said, 104 properties all around, not just in Middleborough. We kept coming back. We liked the open rural part. We liked the downtown. We're lucky. We have an historic commission. We have a conservation commission. They're very active. The police building committee has been unbelievable on making sure that we're going to maintain downtown and that building, which is an historic building. I think it's one of the only on the National Register. Diane mentioned the CPA. We have funds now that can be put towards those kinds of things. And open space, not just preservation or restoration, but open space. The tax breaks. That, I've always said, why do we give big companies that come in here tax breaks, and then downtown is dying? They're just making their tax bill. If anything, we should look into having some kind of an agreement across the board for those companies and businesses downtown. As far as expanding too much, I know there's still a lot of empty space in Campanelli Drive. I don't know how much more new construction is going to go on there before we could fill something like that. And that's going to be something that we have to work on very closely with the town planner too. We have to have the same vision for the town, which I get a feeling that most of the officials, the town planner, the commission, the Conservation Commission, the Historic Commission, have the same vision that you do, and the same thing that has attracted, like I said, my husband and myself, and many of us.
I also agree with my colleagues. That is probably the reason I moved to Middleborough. I want the characteristics of the town to change. But we do have to realize that Campanelli is kind of empty, and we need to put more businesses in there. And is it in your backyard? Is it you're saying you could hear pallets dropping?
No, my point is it's that far away. It's just a general point. I'm not complaining.
Okay.
but the fact is, when every one of these companies come in, there's unforeseen circumstances. The increased traffic, except the trash along the roads, and the noise at weird hours of the morning.
I can see where that would be a concern. It's something maybe you'd have to address directly if I was a selectman directly with the company if someone had a direct complaint. Hope that answers your question.
I'm afraid we're out of time. Sorry, we have to close here, and just remind everybody to go and vote on April 30th. The town election combines with the state primary this year. It's on Tuesday, so don't forget, vote. And thank you everybody for coming tonight, and thank all the candidates.